Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 406, A Judgment Brawl. The episode begins right where the last one left off, during Ash and Katie's battle. However, since Ash had lost 3 Pokemon, and one of the trainers losing 3 Pokemon resulted in the field changing, that's exactly what happened, as the referee momentarily stopped the match so that the computer could pick a new field for the battle to take place on, and the computer landed on the water field, so the rock field was lowered down and replaced with the water battlefield. That consisted of a pool of water with several small platforms for Pokemon to stand on. Ash and Katie both decided to send out Pokemon that were good choices for the new field, which Tyson made note of as Ash sent out Corphish and Katie sent out Golduck once again. The referee then officially declared that it was time for the battle to resume, so Corphish started off by using a Crab Hammer and Golduck responded by using a Fury Swipes. And Golduck and Corphish both jumped at each other to launch their attacks as close as possible. May, Max, Brock, Morrison, and Tyson all point out, though, that the Fury Swipes and Crab Hammer weren't getting the battle anywhere whatsoever, because the Fury Swipes were just being deflected by Corphish's Crab Hammer, but the Crab Hammer was being deflected by the Fury Swipes at the same time, so it was essentially just nothing at all. So, Katie changed her strategy, ordering Golduck to use Hydro Pump, though Ash countered by telling Corphish to jump and use Crab Hammer. So, Corphish was able to dodge the Hydro Pump and still go in for a Crab Hammer. Katie wasn't worried about this whatsoever, though, and simply just told Golduck to use Confusion, which stopped Corphish in midair and held it in place, so basically, Corphish couldn't get its Crab Hammer off. Corphish desperately tried to attack, swinging its claws frantically, but it couldn't before Golduck then released the Confusion, flinging Corphish across the stadium and into the water. Although it was able to crawl itself onto one of the platforms instead of swimming in the water. Ash figured that this meant Corphish wasn't affected by the confusion and was still capable of acting on his own, so he called out to Corphish, trying to tell it to attack, but unfortunately, Corphish didn't listen because it actually was confused from Golduck's confusion, worrying May, Max, Brock, Morrison, and Tyson, because they realized that the only reason that Corphish had been able to climb back up onto the platform was because it was an innate survival instinct. It wasn't even really paying attention to what it was doing. Ash then tries to have Corphish use Harden, but since Corphish was so out of it, he instead just ended up diving headfirst into the water, not even hearing anything Ash had said at all. The announcer of the match and Golduck questioned where the fuck Corphish went, as Katie simply watched what was going on confidently, as she was sure that she was going to win, and Corphish would turn up on the battle. But just then, Corphish managed to sneak up to Golduck unnoticed before hitting it with a strong Crab Hammer straight to the face, sending it flying back. Corphish was still confused, but it was somehow able to make it up to Golduck's platform and attack it in its confusion. I guess it just felt like attacking Golduck, I guess. Katie grits her teeth in utter anger and annoyance, as her Golduck was injured and Corphish just landed safely on one of the platforms. Katie unleashed her anger by ordering her Golduck to use Fury Swipes on Corphish and finish it off, and Golduck obliges, jumping towards the still confused Corphish, who could not hear Ash begging it to dodge because, it was still confused. However, just before Golduck could actually attack Corphish, in its confusion, accidentally grabbed on to one of Golduck's hands with its own claws and started shaking them immensely, like it was giving a really strong handshake. Golduck was caught off guard, because, it didn't expect Corphish to do this friendly gesture or anything like that. And Ash and the gang, Morrison and Tyson, didn't understand either. Like, they were like, why are you shaking hands with the enemy, Corphish? And they wanted to get the confused Corphish to stop. But then Ash realized that he could actually gain the advantage if he just let Corphish continue to be confused, since Golduck was now confused as well, due to Corphish's weird behavior, so they were technically on equal footing now. So, while Golduck was shocked and everything, Ash commanded Corphish to throw Golduck and then use Bubble Beam. Corphish obliges, using a Vice Grip to spin Golduck around and then toss it, and then it used a Bubble Beam, which launched Golduck all the way into the stadium wall, knocking it out from the impact, as the judge, referee of the match, officially declared that Golduck was unable to battle. So, Kate recalled her Golduck and sent out a Pokemon she had already sent out before, Venomoth. Did Ash choose to switch out? No, he just told Corphish to prepare itself, confident that he could win again after the last battle, even though it was obvious that Corphish being confused could end badly. This was proven, as Corphish launched a Bubble Beam at Venomoth, even without being ordered to. Katie simply ordered her Venomoth to dodge the Bubble Beam, and then use Supersonic on the already confused Corphish, which obviously had no effect. Katie was embarrassed someone like her just used an attack that had no effect, while May, Max, Brock, and Morrison mocked Katie a little bit. Although, as Ash simply saw some waves wash over Corphish, and Corphish not do anything, he realized that having Corphish out was not a good idea. It was too confused, so he quickly recalled his Corphish, so that it could recover from its confusion while in the Pokeball, and then come back out later. In the meantime, Ash noted that Venomoth was a bug type, and flying types would have an advantage against bug types, so Ash sent out his Swellow, leading Katie to respond by telling her Venomoth to use Stun Spore, although Ash just has Swellow dodge, and then use Peck on Venomoth. May and Morrison were impressed by Ash's quick thinking, as was Pikachu in May's lap, and the 3 of them cheered Ash on, as Katie then told Venomoth to use Disable to prevent Swellow from ever pecking it again. Although Ash confidently remarks that Swellow still had other flying type attacks it could use, so he just had Swellow use an Aerial Ace instead, which entailed Swellow looping around in midair so that it could backtrack a little bit to get a little extra speed, and then it dove straight for Venomoth, smacking into it and sending it down towards the arena's water. Venomoth quickly emerges from the water, though, flying up, as Katie quickly told Venomoth to use a Supersonic. Since Swellow wasn't confused, so Katie essentially wanted to confuse it, like she did Corphish. Although Ash just had Swallow dodge the attack with a quick attack, and then turn the quick attack into an actual attack, which entailed Swallow speeding through the supersonic waves that were still occurring after it had worked so hard to dodge it, and with the help of this quick attack, it was able to quickly smash into Venomoth, sending it back into the water, and now it was knocked out for real this time. It was initially hard to tell if Venomoth had fainted, because it had caused a huge wave when it fell underwater, and it appeared to be lost underwater, but it soon floated up, and the referee officially declared that Venomoth was unable to battle. So this led Katie to recall her Venomoth and send out her next Pokemon, Scizor, which Max noted was another bug type. May was confused at why Katie had chose another bug type for going against Swallow, since the bug types were weak against Swallow, although Max actually informed May that he had forgotten before that Scizor was also part Steel type, and Steel was relatively good against flying types, so it wasn't a complete loss for Scizor. And Tyson confirmed this, wondering what type would shine with Scizor. Would its weakness of the bug type shine, or its strength of the Steel type shine? Ash was not worried about his potential disadvantage whatsoever, though, as he simply just ordered Swallow to use a quick attack, something that wasn't weak or strong against bug types, or weak or strong against Steel types. Katie just told her Scizor to use quick attack as well, and Scizor and Swallow sped towards each other and hit each other with quick attacks repeatedly in midair, although they eventually stopped and got into a bit of a staring contest, which was their way of showing somewhat respect for one another for taking all their respective hits they took. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were still in the stadium, selling a whole bunch of snacks, as ordered by their boss, though they were trying to get a peek at the battle between Ash and Katie that was going on as well. Jesse and James were far less interested in the battle than Meowth, though, because they were at least willing to just watch it on the side, while mainly focusing on their work. But Meowth, on the other hand, really wanted to watch the battle, and literally stopped working to do so. But Jesse and James then shout at Meowth, noticing him slacking, and demand that he get back to work, stating that work was more important than watching a battle. And Jessie then stated that with Meowth slacking off, they may not have sold all they could have today, so she takes extra action by lifting her box of snacks above her head in the air and told the crowd that had gathered in front of her to watch the battle what snacks she was selling. And suggests one man in particular buy some snacks, just a random guy that she picked from the audience, and this made the guy from the audience angry at the fact that she was trying to manipulate him into buying food and shit like that, and accused her of such a heinous crime. But from there, the man just accuses her of being annoying because he was just trying to watch the goddamn battle. Jesse was about to go into an uncontrollable rage, but was thankfully stopped as Wobbuffet popped out of its Pokeball, and this gave James and Meowth the opportunity to offer the crowd some snacks as opposed to Jesse, and they did it, a lot nicer of a way, so the crowd actually bought their snacks. Pretty happy to do so as well. Anyways, back to the battle. The effects of Disable had now worn off on Swallow, so Ash ordered it to use Peck once more, leading Katie to tell Scizor to use Double Team, creating several illusions of itself across the various platforms. It was basically one on almost every platform, so this made it very hard for the Peck to hit the right one. Virtually impossible, actually. Katie then takes advantage of all the Scizors and tells them all to use Metal Claw, and they all charge towards Swallow. So this leads Ash to tell Swallow to use Double Team, creating copies of its own to battle Scizors, so now both Pokemon had an army of copies at their side. Ash then tells Swallow to quick attack all of the Scizor copies, so the quick attack meets with the Metal Claw, and both attacks essentially cancel each other out, destroying all the copies, leaving just the real Scizor and the real Swallow. From there, Ash orders Swallow to use an Aerial Ace, in addition to another Double Team to get the copies back in the battle. So, all of the Swallow clones, once they were created by the Double Team, loop around and speed towards Scizor with an Aerial Ace, and Katie had Scizor counter with Hidden Power to destroy all the Swallow copies once again. Ash then calls for a quick attack, leading Scizor to try and use Hidden Power, but Swallow flew right into Scizor before it could unleash the attack, so Katie then changed tactics, telling Scizor to instead use Metal Claw. This at least looked like it hit Swallow, but in actuality, Swallow had used Aerial Ace, and this caused Swallow to vanish just in time, and when it reappeared, it was able to hit Scizor after the Metal Claw had been administered. The sheer force of this attack sent Swallow down onto a platform, and it was immediately knocked out, so the referee clarified that Scizor was unable to battle, and Katie recalled it, knowing that she was down for her last Pokemon, which she was pretty pissed off about. She didn't expect the battle to go this way, but after waiting a few seconds in silence, she finally sent out her last Pokemon, a Walrein. As the screen displayed that Katie was down to her last Pokemon, Brock, May, Max, Pikachu, Morrison, and Tyson cheered, since Pikachu was on May's lap, and they were happy to see that Ash was winning. Ash was also excited that the victory was close, so he quickly ordered Swallow to use a quick attack again, and this attack hit Walrein pretty hard. Despite the hard hits, though, Walrein's body mass and just its pure strength made the hard hit bounce right off and not do any damage at all, and Swallow was not shocked by this, and so shocked that it was sent flying back after being bounced off Walrein's body. Katie then tells Walrein to use Ice Beam, leading Ash to tell Swallow to dodge as best it can. Swallow was able to mostly dodge, but a tip of one of its wings got frozen. Ash tries to tell Swallow to persevere through this, and use a peck, while Morrison shouts encouragement towards Swallow. Katie just had Walrein jump off one of the platforms and dive underwater, causing Swallow's peck to miss. This makes Ash angry as he grits his teeth, and Katie was now confident she could make a comeback as she orders the Walrein to emerge from the water and use Ice Beam. The Ice Beam lands a direct hit, forcing Swallow to crash onto the floor, all the way outside the area with the platforms, knocked out. So the referee officially declared that Swallow was unable to battle, and the announcer commented that Ash only had 2 Pokemon remaining, while Katie and Walrein were now more confident than ever. Ash knew that he was down to either Grovyle or Corphish, and he wanted to save Grovyle's full strength until it was absolutely necessary. So he sent out Corphish, who Brock picked up, was breathing heavy, which indicated that although being in its Pokeball had healed Corphish of its confusion, it was still immensely exhausted from its last battle it was in. Taking advantage of the fact that Corphish was exhausted, Walrein uses Body Slam, although Ash orders Corphish to counter with a Bubble Beam. Unfortunately, the bubbles just bounce off of Walrein completely, and Walrein smashes down straight onto Corphish, creating a huge wave in the process, which shakes all the arena's platforms. But when this wave cleared, we saw Corphish lying under Walrein's huge body and being knocked out. So the referee officially declares that Corphish was unable to battle, as a worried Max comments from the stands that not even Swallow and Corphish were able to take out Walrein, so now it was even. Ash was down to his last Pokemon, and he knew this. So he knew that he had no option but to send out Grovyle. And right as Grovyle landed on one of the platforms and started staring down Walrein, the announcer reminded Ash and the whole crowd that he was down to his last Pokemon. Yeah, as if we couldn't tell by the screen, and also just by logic, dude. Thanks for pointing out the obvious. Anyways, Walrein started off the battle with a nice beat, hoping to end the battle right there. As Ash and the gang cheer on Grovyle, however, Ash tells Grovyle to jump out of the way to dodge the Ice Beam and then attack using Leaf Blade, and Grovyle obliges, causing the Ice Beam to freeze some water instead that surrounded Walrein. Katie then orders Walrein to dodge the Leaf Blade after she had seen Grovyle jump over the Ice Beam by diving underwater, and right as Walrein dives underwater, Grovyle lands on the platform that Walrein had just jumped off of. Ash was frustrated by the fact that Walrein was able to dodge, and also the fact that Walrein clearly had the advantage due to being a water type in a water field, and Ash knew that Katie knew that she had this advantage, and that's why she was implementing it. Grovyle tries to look around for Walrein, knowing it would likely emerge, and sure enough, it did, using Ice Beam, which caught Grovyle by surprise, even though it was trying its best to look. It couldn't find any sign of Walrein in time. And because of this, the Ice Beam landed a direct hit, which sent Grovyle flying back, although Grovyle was determined not to give up, so it just smiled, as a way of admitting that sure was a strong attack to Walrein, but it gets back up, and stares at Walrein for a while, before Walrein decides to dive under the water once again to try and surprise Grovyle again. Walrein kept emerging on several platforms, and then diving again and again and again and again in an attempt to confuse Grovyle, as per ordered by Katie. Ash was frustrated by this, not knowing what to do, since none of his attacks would be able to hit Walrein while it was underwater. But just then, Ash notices the frozen water that was surrounding the platform from the mist Ice Beam, and Ash got happy, as because of this frozen water, he had come up with a plan, instructing Grovyle to use Leaf Blade on the water, which breaks through the frozen water so severely that it creates a huge wave that forces Walrein up and out of the water. Katie remained calm and told Walrein to use yet another Ice Beam, while Ash quickly told Grovyle to dodge. So, once again, instead of hitting Grovyle, the Ice Beam hit more of the water, freezing all of that water. Walrein fires multiple more Ice Beams, but Grovyle dodges each one by jumping, and as a result, more and more water gets frozen, until, much to Katie's shock and annoyance, the entire pool of water was now ice, so this got rid of Walrein's advantage, since it couldn't dive underwater. Walrein, Brock, May, Morrison, and Tyson and Max were all shocked by Grovyle's move as well, which caused the pool to be frozen, with May calling it absolutely stunning, while Morrison shouted to Ash that now that Walrein didn't have his advantage and couldn't hide underwater, it would be a perfect time for Ash and Grovyle to attack without fear. Sure enough, Ash did, knowing that Walrein was slower on land, ordering Grovyle to attack with Quick Attack, immediately jumping off the new platform it had just landed on, and Grovyle sped straight into Walrein and sent it flying into the stadium wall, also enveloping Walrein in a cloud of dust, which soon dissipated because of the sheer force of being knocked into the wall. Anyways, after the Quick Attack, Grovyle lands on one of the platforms, and Ash encourages it to keep going, thanking it for doing a good job so far. Katie didn't seem worried, despite her Walrein just taking quite a bit of damage though, as she merely just tells Walrein to use a Mimic. As Brock explains in the audience, Mimic was a move that allowed your Pokemon to mimic your opponent's last attack. So Walrein quickly gets up and charges away from the wall, straight into Grovyle with its mimicked Quick Attack, since Grovyle was unable to dodge, since it was caught off guard, and Grovyle was sent flying from the hit as a result. But it managed to stop itself and climb onto a platform before hitting the wall. Grovyle then stares at Walrein as a form of respect for Walrein's power, since Walrein had just gotten rid of its disadvantage of not having much speed simply by copying Grovyle's attack. From the stands, Morrison was still confused as to what Mimic did, so Max had to explain it to him, even though Brock had already explained it. Ash then tells Grovyle to use Leaf Blade, and this attack sends Walrein flying, but it manages to regain its balance on one of the platforms and uses a Body Slam. Although Ash simply tells Grovyle to dodge this and use Bullet Seed, so Grovyle does this by leaping up into the air, firing a whole bunch of Bullet Seeds onto a Walrein that couldn't defend itself by hiding in the water, so it took the brunt of the attack, getting pretty injured, which in turn frustrated Katie, and she told Walrein to use Ice Beam again, but Grovyle was able to jump out of the way to dodge it using a Quick Attack. Grovyle then turns a Quick Attack into an actual attack, speeding towards Walrein once again and striking it hard. Katie was mad as fuck, gritting her teeth in anger, as since Grovyle was way faster on land, so long as Walrein wasn't using a mimicked Quick Attack, Grovyle was able to get plenty of Quick Attacks off on Walrein in a row, with Katie unable to do anything aside from watch. May, Brock, Max, Tyson and Morrison were watching as well, but they were actually happy, obviously. But then Katie declared that she was going to finish things off and take back the advantage, as she told Walrein to use the mimicked quick attack once again, and Walrein obliges, speeding towards Grovyle, as Ash tells Grovyle to counter with a quick attack of its own. As Grovyle and Walrein approach each other, getting closer and closer, Ash and Katie both become anxious, wondering what quick attack would be stronger. Finally, Grovyle and Walrein both collide. May, Max, and Brock were shocked by this, as they expected that Ash was actually going to mimic Tyson's hidden away strategy that he used in his match against Aggron, where Ash would essentially charge towards Walrein, but then move out of the way at the last second to wear Walrein down and make it tired from failing attacks, and that would give Grovyle the chance to strike. But they realized that Ash actually had a different plan. While Tyson commented that Ash wasn't copying his old strategy, just doing what came naturally. As for what Ash's different plan was, he ordered Grovyle not to move out of the way, but to dodge underneath Walrein, and from underneath it, Grovyle used the leaf blade, slicing upwards in an uppercut motion, going straight up Walrein's body, sending it high in the sky and crashing back down to the ground, which knocks Walrein out. So the referee officially declared that Walrein was unable to battle, and Ash was therefore the winner of the entire battle, along with his team. Grovyle poses on the platform to show off, while the screen wipes Katie off and instead just shows Ash as the winner with his 6 Pokemon profiles beside him. Ash was understandably very happy about his win, and happily ran up to Grovyle and thanked it for its hard work, as Grovyle confidently poses once more. Not being a sore loser, Katie decides to go up to Ash and congratulate him on the victory and thank him for the great battle. Ash thanks Katie for a great battle as well, and he and Katie shake hands, showing there was no bad blood between the two. The crowd then cheered for Ash, including Tyson, Morrison, May, Max, and Brock, and Morrison was motivated by Ash's win, promising that he was going to win as well. And sure enough, we then see the remainder of the matchups for this round, including Tyson's and Morrison's. And Morrison used his Matang to defeat Machoke in the last battle of the 6-on-6, winning. And Tyson used his Meowth against a trainer's last Pokemon, Rhydon, having it use an Iron Tail to knock out the Rhydon and get a win as well. So Ash, Tyson, and Morrison were all advancing to the top 16. Tyson and Morrison were obviously very hyped about their wins, but Ash and the gang were as well, especially Ash, because that meant he could have a chance to finally battle them in the next round. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were back at that house, and they had finished their shift for the day, so their boss had rewarded them with a new meal for dinner, being green tea and rice. Their boss was even eating with them, and he admitted that he was very happy with their work, and if they continued their good work, he may take them to an all-you-can-eat barbecue. Specifically, he may take them tomorrow if they continue the hard work. Team Rocket were in disbelief at their new boss's very kind gesture. Their new boss also said that if they worked for days and days on end and were successful, he'd even consider passing down his entire part of league managing to them. And Jesse, James, Meowth, and Wobbuffet, who popped out of his Pokeball, all celebrate at this. Then their boss takes his leave, and Jesse suggests that they should try, while selling food, to also capture Pikachu tomorrow. And James, Meowth, and Wobbuffet all cheer with her again, agreeing with this idea. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, Morrison and Tyson, they decided to go to a pizza restaurant to celebrate Ash, Morrison, and Tyson getting into the top 16, and they were very much enjoying all the pizza. Talking about the tournament and all of the successful matches that had occurred today, with Morrison especially stating how proud he was of himself, since this was his first ever league as a Pokemon trainer, and he'd gotten pretty far. Just then, though, the conversation was interrupted when Max got a notification on his Pokénav, because he had apparently set it up to get notifications related to league updates. He wasn't just searching them out. But anyways, this update was that the matchups for the top 16 were being announced at the Pokemon Center. Ash got excited at this and suggested that they all go to the Pokemon Center to see who he, Morrison, and Tyson would be facing, and Morrison happily agreed, agreeing so enthusiastically that Max was a little bit shocked. Anyways, Ash, Morrison, Tyson, and the rest of the gang made their way to the Pokemon Center, and much to Morrison and Ash's shock, they found a matchup on the screen that they weren't really expecting deep down. Ash and Morrison were going to be facing each other in the top 16. Morrison was actually more shocked than Ash, who was so shocked that he couldn't even speak, and looked pretty depressed even, for some reason. Like, yeah, Ash and the gang and Tyson were shocked too, and Ash was a bit sad that he and Morrison were facing in the top 16, and not like in the finals or some shit, but he didn't see a reason for Morrison to be depressed, because at the end of the day, their battle would be a good one, so he tried to cheer Morrison up, telling him this, but he stated that he did not want to, and walked out of the Pokemon Center, still in a state of shock and depressed, leaving Ash and the gang and Tyson sad and confused, wondering why the fuck Morrison didn't want to battle all of a sudden. And Ash was concerned for Morrison, so he chased after him outside of the Pokemon Center. First, Ash went to check Morrison's tree hammock that he slept in a lot of the time, and called out for him, but Morrison didn't respond, so Ash knew that he wasn't there. So he wondered where the fuck he could have gone to, but continued looking regardless. Suddenly though, Ash hears Morrison nearby, training his Metang. Morrison was essentially telling it that they had to be able to overcome Ash's Pokemon, so they had to get stronger. So he ordered Metang to use a takedown on a nearby tree, but he quickly told Metang to stop when he imagined Ash's face in it, and it was essentially bothering him. Metang then turns around, confused at why Morrison had just told it to stop all of a sudden. Morrison was confused himself, and upset, not wanting to face Ash, and just stressed and everything, and confused as to why part of him wanted to fight Ash, part of him didn't. He was just all fucked, so he fell to the ground, and suddenly Ash appeared and greeted Morrison happily, trying to comfort him and spread his happiness to Morrison. Morrison couldn't even turn around to face Ash, and was still shocked and depressed at the battle matchup, and ran off with Metang, not wanting to talk to Ash right now. Just as Morrison leaves, Brock, May, and Max appear, and Ash stated his confusion as to why Morrison was acting so weird, leading Brock to explain that even though Morrison did partially want to battle Ash, a part of him also felt hesitant to battle his new friend because he didn't have many friends and he finally made one, and he didn't want to ruin their friendship if he ended up winning the battle. And he also didn't want to risk ruining their friendship if he lost the battle as well, and kind of acted out disrespectfully or some shit. Basically, Morrison just didn't want to fight a close friend, at least partially. As we see Morrison running deep into the woods, Ash gets stressed out, hoping that Morrison would show up for the battle, and wondered who would win. The next day, it was now time for Ash and Morrison's battle, as their battle was the first battle of the top 16. To motivate Ash and Morrison, the stadium flame was burning brightly. Ash was relieved to see Morrison on the side opposite of him, because part of him thought that Morrison may not even showed up to battle. And it was then that the battlefield was selected by the computer to be none other than the battlefield that was totally covered in ice, which Ash told Morrison was the perfect contrast to the flame that was burning bright, although Morrison just ignored Ash and angrily looked at him, likely angry at the fact that he had to battle him, as Brock, Tyson, Max, and May watched in the audience, silently wondering how this battle would go. Ash then decided to send out his Corphish first, with Morrison hesitantly calling out his Giraffe Rig, still not wanting to battle, but he had to, as the referee officially declared that the battle was to begin. While the screen displays Morrison and Ash's profiles, along with Giraffe Rig and Corphish's. Anyways, the battle begins with Ash telling Corphish to use a vice grip, and Morrison hesitantly counters with a light screen, barely being able to focus on the battle. And since he couldn't focus, he had forgotten that light screen only defended against special moves, and Corphish's vice grip was a physical move, so Corphish was able to easily break through the light screen and attack Giraffe Rig, clamping onto Giraffe Rig's head. However, Giraffe Rig managed to shake Corphish off independently, sending Corphish sliding backwards on the ice. Morrison was still hesitant to battle, but he knew he had to do something, so he told Giraffe Rig to use tackle, although he said it pretty quietly. Corphish was able to avoid the tackle though, because it was still sliding on the ice after being shaken off from Giraffe Rig, and slid straight into a curved upright icicle, which basically stopped Corphish from sliding, and he was able to pivot his movement and slide another way, fully avoiding the tackle. As Giraffe Rig was moving towards Corphish with the tackle though, it was unable to stop in time when it saw that Corphish had dodged, so it ended up getting injured when it ran straight into the icicle. Ash then orders Corphish to attack with a vice grip, but Giraffe Rig was unable to maintain its balance on the ice, and it tried to jump off of the ice, but tripped as a result. So, with Giraffe Rig down, having fallen down on the ice, Corphish ended up missing the vice grip. Ash suddenly gets an idea though, as he orders Corphish to use its pincers to clamp onto one of the smaller icicles, and it spins around on one of these icicles, allowing it to move into Giraffe Rig's position and strike it with a vice grip for real this time. Morrison knew that he had to do something, so he told Giraffe Rig to use an Iron Tail desperately, but Corphish was able to dodge and then attacked Giraffe Rig with Crab Hammer, knocking Giraffe Rig out, shocking Morrison. As he called Giraffe Rig back into his Pokeball, saying nothing, as the referee officially declared Giraffe Rig unable to battle, and the screen updated to show this. Morrison, however, didn't send out his next Pokemon, even when the announcer told him to, since he was petrified by not knowing what Pokemon to send out, or if he should even continue with the battle to begin with. The referee continued to urge Morrison to call out his next Pokemon, but Morrison just couldn't concentrate. The announcer of the battle then said that if Morrison didn't send out a Pokemon soon, it would count as a forfeit, and Ash would win the battle by default, leading Ash to panic, not wanting his friend to give up on the battle and not give it all, not give it his all, because he wanted a genuine battle. He didn't want Morrison to hold back just because they were friends. That's not how he rolled. Brock, Max, May, and Tyson were concerned as well, wanting this battle to continue.